summit up tonight, where the European Central Bank today followed in the footsteps of the US Fed by raising its key lending rates by 25 basis points. The ECB President Christine Lagarde says in her speech earlier today that inflation is said to remain too high for too long. Let's listen to her.
Financial data, the dynamics of underlying inflation, and the strength of monetary policy transmission. We also decided to set the remuneration of minimum reserves at 0%. This decision will preserve the effectiveness of monetary policy by maintaining the current degree of control over the monetary policy stance and ensuring the full pass-through of our interest rate decisions to money markets. At the same time, it will improve the efficiency of monetary policy by reducing the overall amount of interest that needs to be paid on reserves in order to implement the appropriate stance. The decisions taken today are set out in a press release that is available on our website. The details of the change to the remuneration of minimum reserves are provided in a separate press release to be published at 3:45 Continental European Time. I will now outline in more detail how we see the economy and inflation developing, and will then explain our assessment of financial and monetary conditions. Looking at the economic activity first. The near-term economic outlook for the euro area has deteriorated, owing largely to weaker domestic demand. High inflation and tighter financing conditions are dampening spending. This is weighing especially on manufacturing output, which is also being held down by weak external demand. Housing and business investment are showing signs of weakness as well. Services remain more resilient, especially in contact-intensive subsectors such as tourism. But momentum is slowing in the service sector. The economy is expected to remain weak in the short run. Over time, falling inflation, rising incomes, and improving supply conditions should support the recovery. The labor market remains robust. The unemployment rate stayed at its historical low of 6.5% in May, and many new jobs are being created, especially in the services sector. At the same time, forward-looking indicators suggest that this trend might slow down in the coming months and may turn negative for manufacturing. As the energy crisis fades, governments should roll back the related support measures promptly and in a concerted manner. This is essential to avoid driving up medium-term inflationary pressures, which would otherwise call for a stronger monetary policy response. We welcome the recent Eurogroup statement on the euro area fiscal stance, which is consistent with this assessment. Fiscal policies should be designed to make our economy more productive and to gradually bring down high public debt. Policies to enhance the euro area's supply capacity can help reduce price pressures in the medium term while supporting the green transition, which is also being furthered by the Next Generation EU programme. The reform of the EU's economic governance framework should be concluded before the end of this year. Let's look at inflation. Inflation came down further in June, reaching 5.5% after 6.1% in May. Energy prices fell again, dropping by 5.6% year-on-year. Food price inflation continued to slow but remained high at 11.6%. Inflation, excluding energy and food, edged up to 5.5% in June, with goods and services following diverging trends. Goods inflation decreased further to 5.5% from 5.8% in May. Conversely, services inflation rose to 5.4% from 5% in May, owing to robust spending on holidays and travel, and also reflecting upward base effects. The drivers of inflation are changing. External sources of inflation are easing. By contrast, domestic price pressures, including from rising wages and still robust profit margins, are becoming an increasingly important driver of inflation. While some measures are moving lower, underlying inflation remains high overall, including owing to the persistent impact of past energy price increases on economy-wide prices. Although most measures of longer-term inflation expectations currently stand at around 2%, some indicators remain elevated and need to be monitored closely. Turning now to our risk assessment. The outlook for economic growth and inflation remains highly uncertain. Downside risks to growth include Russia's unjustified war against Ukraine and an increase in broader geopolitical tensions